I can promise you right now, whether you loved or hated this movie, you will not see anything like Annette this year. What is up, big fans? Welcome back to my channel. Annette has been in limited theaters over the past couple of weeks, but it's finally coming to Amazon Prime this weekend, and today I'm going to give you guys my review and tell you how this movie just had my jaw on the floor while I was watching, but is that a good thing? Let's get into it right now, spoiler-free. So, a stand-up comedian and his opera singer wife have a 2-year-old daughter with a surprising gift. And I guess I won't get into specifics about the 2-year-old daughter, but I will say the surprising nature of that character is something that I don't think a lot of people will expect going in, but really the film as a whole. And if you're going into this movie blind and you just know that it's called Annette, Adam Driver's in it, Marion Cotillard is in it, well, then you're probably thinking it's going to be a musical from the trailers. But this isn't just a musical. This is a full-on rock opera that never breaks stride. It never tries to be anything other than what the director intends on it being. Carax is our director here, and I hope I'm kind of pronouncing that correctly. A very polarizing figure behind the camera, and his films aren't for everyone, but the audience that receives his movies in a positive light are normally obsessed with his very artistic and independent style of filmmaking, and that's brought to life in this movie, even though there is much more of a broad appeal here because you have stars like Driver and Cotillard, and Cotillard is incredible in this film. Her voice is amazing. Driver's a really good singer, but sometimes you can hear the strain in which he is trying to sing with, and that's fine. I like the natural aspect of what he was giving us, and of course, throughout the film, they are actually singing. What we hear and what we see is what is happening. Not a lot of this is dubbed over, and I think that's really impressive. But Cotillard absolutely has the best voice of the two. But I look at Driver's performance in this movie and the emotional range that he's trying to show us. Not only that, but also kind of the torment that he's going through and the torment that he's bringing other people, what his character has to deal with in this movie. And the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, so that's what this is about. And he's going through a lot. He's also causing a lot of harm on other people. So all of that being said, I think Driver has to do a lot in terms of his performance here, and this may be one of his best performances we've ever seen. Now, we'll get into the entirety of the film, and I'm not going to sit back and say I loved every ounce of it, but he's incredible, and I think his performance is worth watching alone. And if you love musicals and movies like this, in which the entirety, almost, maybe not 100%, but most of the film is singing and songs of various genres and types, and Driver's character is a comedian, so he'll get up on stage, do his routine, but the audience in his crowd is singing back to him. And when I first saw that, because it's almost at the beginning of the movie, I'm like, okay, is this something that's actually happening, or are we to interpret that this is his response mentally, how his audience is receiving his performance? And that's kind of where I fell at the end of the day. When we see everyone around them engage in the music and the songs that they're singing, sometimes it fits, right? At the beginning, we get an opening number where Driver and Cotillard are walking out of the theater. People are following and kind of joining in on the song. And it was so odd because, you know, I wasn't expecting that. Not very familiar with the director's work. I wasn't entirely sure what this movie would be. And I wasn't really on board with it at first. It took me about 5 to 10 minutes. But once I accepted what this film was and tried to get invested in the characters, and at times it's hard because, you know, the music tends to overpower the story itself throughout the film. And there are scenes that go on too long. We'll get into that here in just a second. But once I accepted what the movie was, I was kind of transfixed. You know, again, I did have my issues, but I was locked in. Even though I feel like a lot of more general audiences are going to watch this and say, well, that was a waste of time, or that was extremely weird. And you're not wrong. I guess the word to use here is weird or odd, but it's such an artistic vision and something that is coming to life as we're going throughout the movie that I've never seen before. You at least have to respect it and appreciate it. Even if you don't love this movie, and if you think the style is a bit too strange, I think the respect is going to be there from a lot of people. And this is definitely a movie that I appreciate maybe more than I actually love. And again, we know Driver can sing. We heard him just that one song in Marriage Story, and we understand his range as an actor is incredible, but his voice works, kind of the raspiness of it all at times, and then you combine that with Cotillard's incredible voice and the story and the actual character of Annette, the daughter, how she comes about, and what Driver's Henry is going through in the midst of that process. Now, the first half of the story is oddly paced, and I do think that gets in the way of the progression of the story. I also had to spend a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what the meaning of all of this is. Again, the audience responding to Driver as he's up on stage as a comedian, and just the interpretation of, oh, this is kind of what he sees and how he is seeing the fans perceiving him and really everyone around him throughout the movie. And if you've not seen this film, you're like, Austin, what are you talking about? None of this makes sense. But if you see the movie, it's just something that essentially you have to be ready for, right? I have a feeling this movie is going to have a passionate following, absolutely passionate. And because it is such a distinct style, it's going to have that appeal to a very specific audience. But if you're amongst that audience and you're in love with the pacing and the way the story progressed, I think that was my big issue, was the pacing at times. The style is focused on maybe over substance. The film is beautiful. The cinematography is incredible. Love the color correction. That was a standout for me in the trailer. But certain scenes, they go on a bit too long. The scenes where Driver is up on stage, at times it just kind of feels like he's rambling. It's important to his character to a degree, but I feel like there could have been a cutoff. And the second half of the movie, I think the pacing works a lot better than the first half. We continue to have these interruptions. Once Annette shows up, as creepy as certain moments are, oh my gosh, as creepy as certain moments are, once she shows up, there's a lot to the story that becomes a bit more intense and really important. So it is a movie that you just kind of have to be in the right mindset for. Visually, I wish I could have seen it on the big screen. It is striking on a visual level. Story-wise, my investment could have been a bit better, but again, the appreciation is there. So before I give you guys my score, if you want to support this video and you like this review, be sure to drop your thumbs up down below for more Amazon Prime original reviews. The offbeat rock opera makes its presence known by providing 2 outstanding performances and an original story. The bold storytelling often gets in its own way, but there is plenty to admire here. It's really hard to score a movie like this, but I'm going to go a solid 68%. I was invested in the experience more so than the story, but it's so distinct compared to anything else I've watched this year. I appreciate the artistic vision, so those are my thoughts on Annette. But let me tell you, this movie, guys, it's unlike anything. You just have to see it. Come back when you see it this weekend. Please let me know what you think, and let me know your interpretation of certain scenes, because I think that's really important here. All right, you're the best. Thanks so much for watching. A review for The Night House is coming tonight. Tomorrow, Reminiscence. I'll see you soon.